my previous video, I started sort of ranting about this concept that I have going on, that I am about to have a massive breakthrough. And the reason why I know that is because I am having snippets of visuals, kind of like as if the veil keeps on coming apart, breaking at the seam, and I see through it, but it's not static enough for me to grasp the concept. And that's why I have to keep on revisiting different aspects of where my mind had visited in the past, recent past. So then, because there are a lot of bits of information that I received, and now, I'm seeing this right now. I'm bringing them home. I'm bringing them together, almost like you have all kinds of pieces of the puzzles, and they're mixed up with other puzzles. So from all the other puzzles, you have to pick exactly the pieces that you need for the puzzle that you have to solve, you see. There are pieces of the puzzles mixed in with other puzzles, and you have to find them. So this is what I've been doing. So right now, tonight, I was going through one of my notebooks, the one that I used in November, and I got to when I was studying the gateway process, and I got to the stage where they talk about brain stimulation, specifically about telepathic transmissions. And what I'm going to tell you is this: something very interesting happens to me when I read something or listen to something of very high frequency, like this kind of information. I start receiving see, that's why I'm reluctant to call them downloads, because this information is not something that we receive from somewhere outside of ourselves. This information, exists already within ourselves. So rather than calling them downloads, I only call them downloads so people understand what I'm talking about. But actually, what I consciously look at them as code activation. So within me and within every single one of us, we contain all the information of the entire cosmic field. So everything that was ever created, everything that was ever introduced as notion, as knowledge, as wisdom, all of it exists within us. All we're doing is we allow this code within ourselves to activate, and then we can perceive all of these little stories, right? Everything, whatever I'm talking about, refers to absolutely everything in the world, like these inventors, the scientists, whatever, musicians, painters, whatever. When they create something, they don't actually create it themselves. They are not the creator. All they're doing is they tap into their inner code, and they activate certain parts of the code that allows this exact thing to be visible into the material world, into the physical world. So what happens to me when I listen to or I read something of very high frequency, these codes activate. And by the way, this happens to you too. It's not just to me. So absolutely every single thing you read activates within you code. Now, if you happen to read something of high frequency, then you are going to have access to higher fields of consciousness, higher information. So here I go again. I'm going a little long again, but I guess it will have to be a third part. It is what it is. So I got to the notion of telepathic signals. And just to reiterate for you guys, it's part of the it's part of the gateway program, and it's part of chapter 9 called brain stimulation. And I'm going to address really quickly the transmitting telepathic signals are done in 4 different ways. So we can transmit telepathic signals in 4 different ways. One of them is person to person, right? So you and your mother can transmit to each other telepathic signals. The second one is a 2-way communication. And the third one is a person to field interaction. And the fourth one is a global or collective interaction. So each one of them has different meanings, different explanation. I see that I don't have the two-way communicator. Oh, the two-way communicator is like there's two people who communicate with each other telepathically, not just one person telepathically either sends a message to somebody else or receives a message. They're both doing it. And the other one, the third one is person to field interaction, which means tapping into or influencing the collective energetic field of the earth. So each and every single one of us, we can, by altering our own frequency, our own state of consciousness, we alter the collective state of consciousness, right? We have an impact. And that's why if we raise our consciousness and if we awaken, if we become enlightened by simply reaching that state of consciousness, the collective consciousness raises, you see. So intention, manifesting outcomes, or accessing informations are embedded in this field. So when we raise our consciousness and when we tap into this field, we access the field, but we also influence the field. And then the fourth one is a group or global or collective effect. In other words, a telepathic effect between groups of people that are, and that has been proven with many situations in which groups of people have been able to alter the conditions in, countries, villages, spaces of work, where by simply meditating on a specific intention, they were able to shift the consciousness in that environment. And that's super, super potent. And that's kind of, the example is the 100 monkeys effect, where on some island, these monkeys were given sweet potatoes, and one day one of the monkeys started to wash her potatoes because, they were dirty, they were full of dirt. And everybody on the island started to doing the same thing because they thought, oh, that's so much better, they taste so much better. And scientists then, they figured out that somewhere hundreds of miles away on some other island, other monkeys started to do the same thing without being taught. So it all happened through this telepathic field, through this communication, through this field that is not verbal, right? So then the other thing I wanted to mention too, since we are on the subject, the telepathy tapes, they are so controversial these days, but so worthy to pay attention to, because frankly, I do believe that humanity at one point were so advanced, and I do believe that since everything happens at the same time, time is just a man-made construct, which means realities happen simultaneously, which means our version, our highest consciousness version, which exists right now, has some of the attributes, some of the characteristics being telepathic, and we can teleport, and there's other ways of communication too, or other psychic abilities and all that stuff. But telepathy means, in a way, communicating with each other without using language. And quite honestly, there's a lot of civilizations, higher races of alien beings, extraterrestrials, who don't communicate through language, but they communicate telepathically. In fact, with the Arcturian beings, I've communicated only telepathically, even though at times I spoke, but I didn't need to, because they read my mind. They read our minds right now. So I believe that that's where we're headed. I believe that language is only an impediment, quite honestly. And I believe that it was only introduced in humanity's field of perception only so then we can cover lies. Because if we were able to communicate with each other telepathically, imagine how absolutely amazing and wonderful the world will be when we only will think wonderful things and love each other unconditionally. And with that said, I love you, and I'll see you later.